All right, well, thank you all for being here and attending the MPO TAC meeting. And as our usual custom, we will start with Arthur and we'll work our way around the horseshoe. Introduce yourself and who you're with. Arthur.
Arthur Chambers, MPO Planner.
Andy Moore, City Relation Like You.
Did that one say you? Friendly and textile planning program. At the party. Like Moment City, Waco.
Perhaps have a little good stuff.
Thank you, Zach. Textile Waco area.
Guess from our way going here.
I'm Zane Dunham, Lieutenant County.
Laura Wagstaff, City of Waco. Amy Pillarly, I live in Putnam County representing small cities.
Andy, and textile, APD.
Victor Gable textile.
Suzette Ray, mobilize Waco.
Or right with MPO, Daniela Vagos, with MPO.
That's well,
All right. So who do we have online, Arthur?
We have Abram and Justin M.
April and Justin. Welcome, everyone. Before we get the meeting started, there was a 50th anniversary celebration. Was it a week, last week or the week before? Week before, 2 weeks ago. And yeah, so we had a good turnout. And so some awards were given out, and one person was unable to be present. And so we have an award with us today. And the award is for Suzette May of the Waco MPO Catalyst for Possum Access Award, PAW as in PAW. And Mukesh, you want to give that award to Suzette? It's me? Well, then you get to read the rest of it.
Okay. So, Suzette has been, I've been working closely with the NPO for just about a year. And when it comes to ADA compliance, nobody does it better than Suzette. So in my last 20 years or more, working with ADA accessibility issues in different forms of government, many times, it's difficult to actually get the project moving forward. And Suzette has been instrumental in making sure that the projects actually keep moving forward. And she has figured out, how to get everybody to work together to get the kind of accessibility that everybody is comfortable with. And on a slightly different note, at the Waco MPO and the staff, we have had several discussions, and everybody immediately agrees to this, that we should make Fred our mascot for the MPO. And I suddenly lost the train of my thought. So one of the important things that we want to make sure that we wish that we had more people like Suzette to make sure that projects are delivered the best manner possible. Rather than anyone can ask questions, but not many people have the patience and the commitment to making sure that the projects actually start and finish in the way they need to do. And since we prioritize the quality of the project, Suzette has done a wonderful job in the time that we have been. Thank you.
All right. With that, we will begin our normally programmed agenda. And so number one is review and discussion and possible action regarding resolution 2024-14, approval and Waco MPO Policy Board concurrence and approval of adding existing roadway locations to the strategic highway network. Item A is recommendation to the Waco MPO Policy Board to approve resolution 2024-14, Waco MPO Policy Board concurrence and approval of adding existing roadway locations to the strategic highway network.
So this is something which we have been working on for almost 2 years. So Department of Defense, the Logistics Division, has what they call the power projection platform, and it basically identifies all the portions of highway network that are expected to be classified as strategic highway network. The idea behind this is that all the highway segments that are important for logistics purposes of the Department of Defense, they need to be shown some amount of priority and making sure that they do their own review and audit of these roadway segments to identify if there's any particular problem, which they bring to the attention of the state DOT and the relevant MPO, so that we can prioritize some of this work. And so in this particular case, the connectivity between Fort Bliss and Fort Cavazo and how we connect back down to Port Beaumont and Port Arthur is what is at consideration. Right now within Texas, Department of Defense has proposed adding 17 existing roadway locations throughout the state of Texas. 3 of them are within Waco MPO area, and for all the segments that are within MPO areas, MPO Policy Board is expected to approve that these do get classified as part of the STRA-NET strategic highway network. And so the portions we have in front of us is US 84, State Highway 6, and State Highway 31. Let's go to the next slide. And so all the red lines are what we are considering. And so US 84 is what connects the north gate of Fort Cavazos onto Highway 6, which is multi-mode project that we have. And then the portions of Highway 6 that connects between 84 and 35. And then State Highway 31 that goes all the way to Corsicana to I-45. And from there it goes further down. So these are the 3 roadway segments within Waco MPO area that we're expecting Policy Board to approve that these 3 do get classified on this as part of the STRA-NET. Next slide. So any question that you might have, and then.
Anybody have any questions or have any further discussion? If not, is there a motion to approve to the Policy Board the resolution to approve the resolution 2024-14? Andy has made a motion. Do we have a second? Jim seconds. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? The item passes. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 2, discussion and updates on current grants, which includes the Safe Streets for All, the RAISE grant, and the SMART grant.
So this is for information purposes. I think all of you were here at the last Technical Advisory Committee meeting, and we had this slide in which we did not know that we had received the assist for it. So I not checked my email. It came actually at the same time that we were having the meeting, and so we learned about it right after we got back to the office. So we are super excited that we again have gotten the FY 2024. There have been actually 3 projects that we have gotten in the Waco MPO area. In fact, how should we put it? Combine the implementation projects. We have received more SS4A grants in McLennan County than any other county in the state. So we have done really, really well at this. That's something that we all should be very proud of. Right now, we have executed the grant for the FY 2023. That's the Planning and Demonstration Project grant, and I'll go over that in a little more detail in the next slide. FY 2024, that's the one we have received, and we will be reaching out to you. So we need all of you to start thinking about whether you want to be part of the FY 24 project, which is the sign inventory project. And in that sign inventory project, when we are writing the grant, the idea was that we'll need roughly about 500,000 total, which means 400,000 federal money and 100,000 local, to complete the sign inventory for the rural parts of McLennan County. And so we intentionally wrote the grant for a total of $1 million with the expectation that several smaller cities will want to be part of that. And so we'll be reaching out to you very soon, because based on our input, whether you participate in it or not, we will have to adjust the funding level in the grant agreement. So for instance, we are expecting that there would be roughly about, for most of the smaller cities, roughly about $50,000 thereabouts. And so depending on how many cities are added to this, we'll adjust the overall value of that grant during the grant agreement process. We have also executed the RAISE grant. So we will start working on that. And just to refresh your memory, the RAISE grant is from Taylor Street at I-35, goes on to Franklin, then spurred to 98, then on to US 84 until Ritchie Road. And this is a smart network corridor planning grant. So the expectation is that over the next 3 years, using a few small demonstration projects and thinking through working with the community and all the stakeholders, we'll have a plan in place in 3 years. And in my discussions with FSWA, The underlying expectation is that we will apply immediately for the implementation grant. And this kind of activity typically increases the probability of getting it significantly. And so within 3 years from now, we are expecting that we should have the money to implement it. But obviously, a lot of those things are not done until they're done. But that's the goal we are working toward. We are still waiting to hear back from the strengthening the SMART grant. The SMART grant is largely for the 4th, 5th University Avenue corridor underneath I-35 connecting downtown to Baylor. And the idea is to using the current technology related with sensors and traffic prioritization, how can we smooth out the traffic to the best extent possible. Let's go to the next slide. So these are the projects that we would start working on. The North Loop 340, and in a moment I'll go over each of these with a little more detail. None of this is any final form. The whole idea is that we will bring in a consultant to figure out what kind of design and engineering of the demonstration project itself. And then in the second half of the project is when we implement it, collect data, whether these interventions work or not. If they work, then we can use them as evidence for implementation projects. If they don't work, then we will have to go back to the drawing board and figure out what exactly needs to be done. In each of these cases, and so the next one is on Franklin Avenue. That's actually what we called the downtown Waco project. And so that is to be decided. There's LaSalle Avenue project, Robinson Drive, Hewitt Drive, and Pennsylvania intersection, Valley Mills and Bosque Boulevard. Actually, that's not, if Valley Mills is what we put, we're actually going to be working on Dutton and Valley Mills. And also Valley Mills and sorry, I misspoke, the two of them. So go to the next slide. So this is the area that has had a significant amount of traffic accidents. Loop 340, this is between US 84 and I-35. That connection still needs to be figured out what precisely needs to be done in that location. And it also sort of is a very important roadway for City of Belmead. And significant amount of retail that exists in this area, and the safety has been identified as a major problem in 5 different schools. And so this is one of the project locations. Next slide. This is LaSalle Avenue between University Parks and the traffic circle. And again, gets used significantly by Baylor students and the residents who live on both sides. One of the important thing to remember here is that the this area was the original highway that was replaced by I-35. So a lot of development on both sides, they still sort of have over time stayed in that same direction. So we need to ask ourselves, what do we need to do this roadway segment so that it serves the residents as well as all the businesses on between Baylor and Valley Mills really appropriately. Next slide. This is the area that was identified by City of Robinson as a problem. So you would notice in the modern north of Loop 340, in that case, you're seeing, so it's actually south, so now we upside down. So as you get off Loop 340 and to get on 77, a bunch of these streets are not offset properly. And so the result is that there is quite a bit of conflict points in the turn lane of US 77, and TxDOT put a red light in that location, which has eased the problem somewhat, but there are still a lot of people who come in and immediately try to get into the neighborhood street. So we need to again figure out some demonstration project how to make these turns and reduce the conflict points and figure out what needs to be a permanent solution. Next slide. This is Hewitt Drive. This is the area where I believe that the crossing guards have been hit twice. And this is the area that has significant amount of children who cross the Hewitt Drive. Hewitt Drive, obviously, you know, is fairly congested and has significant volume of traffic. So we need to figure out what do we do exactly for that intersection for the safety of children, as well as one of the challenges, of course, is that in the morning at 8 o'clock, this is also the high peak of commuting time. So there are a lot of people trying to rush to work, and it's the same time when a lot of children are trying to cross. And so this is another location we are going to be working on. Next slide. Valley Mills, Dutton, and Memorial Drive intersection. This is sort of classic example of how we compromise pedestrian safety. That 8 lanes of traffic with a very small traffic island in between. And this is the area where I think, if I remember correctly, our grandmother with 2 children were hit, 3 of them had died, and that's the location here. And so we need to figure out for this location also, how do we, what kind of demonstration project we need so that we can make the area much safer. Next slide. For downtown Waco, the typology for this project was really that downtown obviously is a much higher density, a lot of mixed use, speed is typically lower. And so the idea was, how can we come up with a project in this area so that we can have more human scale experience? So the idea is to take 2 or 3 of the parking spaces in one of the locations and turn that into an extension of the sidewalk itself. And if we can time it with the International Parking Day, that would be fantastic, and that happens, I believe, in September to November timeframe. We have not picked out a location yet, because originally our thought was to consider Franklin Avenue in front of Barnett's Pub and the Clay Pot, but based on the preliminary discussion, that location did not make much sense. So since then, we have considered 2 different locations on 4th Street, and recently another location has been proposed in front of Union Hall on Franklin to extend the parking spaces in front of Union Hall into seating arrangements so that people could be served. So we're going to start working on this. The important part is that we have called a meeting of all the cities that are going to be involved in this for the kickoff of this work. The important part is that we are starting to work on our RFP process so that we can invite the consultants who want to do initial design work. And we also need to sort out exactly what format do we want it to be in, whether it needs to be one consulting firm or we want to do 2 separate consulting firms, to one firm to do the design engineering work, another firm to actually do the project management and the implementation of the demonstration project. And so we want to have detailed discussion on it. So there has been a meeting scheduled. Do you recall which day is the meeting?
16th, I think.
And so we're meeting at one of the conference rooms at the chamber. So please make sure that whoever else is going to be needs to be involved in this is there in that meeting. And Victor, Brenton, and anyone else from TechStop will be there. It's me.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. We added Jacob Chow to the list, but
Okay.
I forgot.
Okay, so we'll have all the people from TechStop who will be directly working on the project relevant to this project also. So,
What's the limit for downtown?
we simply listed the downtown project because we wanted to give ourselves that flexibility. And based on the conversation, where do we want this to be? Originally, we were thinking of that location, but at this point in time, I would consider, we didn't define in the project exactly the boundary of downtown. So again, we wanted that to be flexible because quite often that's the project in which we have to work closely with the business. If businesses do not support it, it's not going to happen. And so so that's the reason why if we have these conversations and if we can move forward, great. If we can't move forward, we just pick another location. I should share that I just had a meeting with a couple of people who are considering another art-related project, and we mentioned that we might be able to combine some of the effort.
Overall, it's a safety project, though.
Yes.
I know you had parking there, but is it also include pedestrian sidewalks or
So what it will basically,
signalization?
so I don't think this will change signalization. What it will do is, so the basic idea was that the sidewalks need to be designed in a manner that people like to stay on, rather than simply a way to very quickly get from point A to point B. And so by extending the sidewalk into the parking space, it does not take anything away from the traffic, but what it does do is it ends up serving as a traffic calming measure and also extends the building itself onto the street. And so what we'll end up measuring, for instance, is how many near misses did we observe after this happened, and that will serve as a data point whether this project actually ends up serving the intended goal of traffic calming.
So it's a corridor type calming, or can it be a point location where there's a lot of conflict between pedestrians and vehicles?
So so the downtown project is a point specific project. So of course, you can't think of exactly that thing, you can get at least a block from there, so that's definitely an important consideration.
Just throwing my 2 cents. I know that we need, the county needs somewhat of a protected crosswalk on Fifth Street where the public parks in the parking lots, public parking, but then they walk across Fifth Street down the alley to go to jury duty. So it's very dangerous. We do have somewhat of a protected crosswalk on Washington Avenue from that parking lot to the courthouse. So I'd like to add that to the list if possible.
Yeah.
Okay. Ready to go on next time?
Any other question about any of these projects? As we said, we're just starting, all we have is a very broad location, but we do not know exact nature of intervention. That's what we will do the RFQ first. To design and engineer what needs to be done, and we will need each one of you to directly involved in the process.
And just thinking about needs for traffic calming, 4th and 5th, definitely speeds are higher than they should be for downtown. So those one-way couplets are probably good locations.
So far, all the locations that have sort of circled through our discussions are, so the one was the Franklin in front of Clay and Barnett, 2 located on 4th Street, one in front of Fable Bookstore, the other in front of the New Herringbone Hotel, and again back to Franklin in front of Union Hall. So these are the 4 locations that have sort of come up, and we'll add the 5th and have more discussion and pick a location and go with it.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to agenda item number 3, discussion and updates regarding the 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan.
So this is the one where and this month, we plan to present the draft of the ranked project in the MPP to the policy board. So today, right now, I want to discuss all the ranking of the projects that we have so far. And we need to get your feedback because at the November meeting, we will request for approval of the draft, and that will sort of serve as the final draft, with which we'll go do formal public comment period. So right now we're in the public meeting phase that we had scheduled. We have completed 2 public meetings so far, and we have 3 more coming up before we compile all the public comment and send it to you. So let's go to the projects. So all the proposals that were made are mapped out here, and this is a very large scale map we are putting up in the public meeting to get people to respond to which of the projects are more important, why, how do people use it and such. And I want to go ahead and talk about each of these projects, but I'm not going to get into a lot of detail unless you have a question. And also, I don't remember all the projects by descriptions, but I do have a complete list of descriptions in front of me. So whichever project picks your attention, please ask, and we can talk about each of them. So let's go there. So one of the first things we did was we identified the projects into 3 different categories. So these are the state deals. So these are the TxDOT right-of-way projects only. And in these projects, the highest ranked project is the Business 77 South Loop Drive, US 84 Potts Interchange, Hewitt Drive. But the third ranked project, that's the project between Sun Valley and 84. And you will see Hewitt Drive again later on. And that's for the entire corridor from I-35 to 84. The 4th project is State Highway 6, and that's the portion from 84 onto the Twin Bridges that's going to occur. Twin Bridges project is going to happen. Baltimore is almost completed. The Lakeshore Steinbeck Bend, that's the 5th ranked project. Then US 84 in Woodway, between 84 and and Highway 6, that's number 6. And then number 7 is Hewitt Drive, that's all of it between 35 and 84. Then US 77 in Robinson, New Dallas Highway in Belmead, and Sun Valley Boulevard in Hewitt. And so this is the ranking that we have come up with based on the evaluation team. And this is the ranking based on all the discussions, subsequent discussions we had, none of these rankings have changed. And only thing that had changed based on the discussions are, originally we had a total of 41 projects, but 2 of the projects should have been combined into a single project. So that's why now you will see a total of 39 projects that are being added into the MTP. The 20th listing, the Tourist Road inside McLennan County, number 19 is the Colson Road.
Yeah, switch the slide.
Oh, you did. Yes,
13
thank
to
you.
20.
And so 13 in the Ritchie Road intersection, that's the area that also ranked highly into our comprehensive safety action plan as a problem area. And then the Old Arena Road inside McLennan County, that's a fairly long segment. Turnarounds on Sun Valley Road at 35 in City of Robinson, Tokyo Road, number 16. And then we also had the Gordonville Parkway in McGregor, State Highway 6 in McLennan County, and then Colson Road and Tourist Road. So those are the 20, all the TxDOT roadway right-of-way projects. Yes. Any question about any of these projects?
I have a question, 2 questions actually. First question, we'll start with number 18. How's that different, State Highway 6, McLennan County from the previous slide and State Highway 6?
This is the one in Riesel.
That's south, okay, good, thanks. And then the other question I had was, you mentioned number 13, you got Hewitt Drive. I'm sorry, not 13, from I-35 to Sun Valley is one. And then you have from Sun Valley going all the way to 84 is another one.
Yes, and the idea is that the Sun Valley to US 84, that segment is most likely going to be declared on the most congested list. And once that happens, the TxDOT Commission typically pays very close attention to it. So it makes sense to deal with that segment itself rather than all of it. And also, yeah.
The first one is from 84 to Sun Valley. Second one is Hewitt, which is Sun Valley to 35.
Yeah.
And then the other one is the whole corridor is the feasibility study, which we'll talk about later.
And I would imagine TxDOT wants that to be separated to help facilitate the money.
That's the goal, yes.
Okay, just wanted to clarify.
So since the evaluation process, only thing we have been sharpening is the description and what's included. And Brenton has done a lot of preliminary cost estimate because all of these projects do need to be financially constrained. So you need to make sure that they're listed as part of the 10-year, for instance, projects that we're listing as part of the 10-year project, they have to comply with the UTP overall numbers are, and the rest of it will go further down. Nice thing in this MTP that we have is several of the feasibility studies, they are not considered part of the financially constrained portion. And so we can probably go ahead with them without having to make sure that there is separate money that's available through this process.
One other item is the TxDOT had done previous public meetings on the US 84 down to, I guess, Highway 6, or actually down maybe Franklin, or to the spur 298. Was that on here?
Spur 298 is moving forward, so that's not,
that's not there.
that's not in the MTP anymore.
Okay.
That's already in TIP and is fully funded and it's going to be that.
Anybody else have any questions?
Okay, so these are the local roadway proposals. And so one of the important things that I wanted to mention is that, obviously we can't use category 2 money to fund any of these projects. But having them listed in the MTP, what it does is that it makes the probability of the project getting funded through any discretionary grant from FSWA or any of the TA projects that are ranked or combined with this often do get priorities. And what it does then is that it allows us to directly refer to our MTP that this Basically, it means that all of these projects have already been vetted through our policy board. That's what it looks like. And so these projects typically, once they are in MTP, they have much higher probability to be competitive versus if they're not in the MTP. And so these are the ranked list of all the projects that were submitted by different cities. Dutton Avenue, Memorial Drive, Das Portion in Waco, North MLK Junior Boulevard in Waco, Eagleville Road, Old Marina Road, 25th, 26th, Forest Street, Sanger Avenue, Old McGregor Road. Arterial roadway extension in Robinson, Panther Way, Air Base Road in Belmead, Park Hill, Castleman Creek in Hewitt, Warren Road in Hewitt, Old Cooper Road in Hewitt, and then Ross Road in Hewitt. So these are all the projects that were submitted and were evaluated by the evaluation team, and this is the ranking that they came up with. So any question on these projects? Okay, next slide. These are all the feasibility studies that we're going to be including in the MTP. The highest ranked one is for Hewitt Drive, and again, the idea behind that is that even though Sun Valley and that is going to, we really need to think of Hewitt Drive and between I-35 and 84, how it functions, why does it function the way it does, and if there is any improvement we need to. So that was ranked very highly by the evaluation team. The regional connectivity over Brazos River, that was also highly ranked. The idea is that north of Lakeshore Drive Bridge on Brazos River, north of that, there is no bridge all the way until you get into Hill County. But not in McLennan County. There is no bridge north of that. And similarly, go ahead.
No, there's not a bridge.
Yeah, and then similarly, on the southern portion of McLennan County, south of Loop 340, there is no bridge until you go into Bell County, where a connection between Mart and that. So the idea was that instead of picking and choosing where the bridges are expensive and any such project will have to be thought through, it made more sense to consider that as a feasibility study. And so what we will do is that this will be a regional connectivity over Brazos River feasibility study. Loop 340 corridor feasibility study. Part of this challenge really is that we still have to figure out how to connect I-35 to Loop 340 in a manner that's consistent with highway design, and obviously over time that portion of Loop 340 has been improved. And so that's the feasibility study related to that. For US 84 corridor feasibility study, this is the area between all the way from McGregor to Highway 6. And again, the idea is that we know that this is the portion where our travel demand models show that highest potential for growth is in this corridor. So instead of thinking of it as simply or only as a capacity project, we need to think of it as do a better job of projecting what it needs to look like. So that's what that feasibility study is. And then the US 77 and Highway 6 interchange study. So these are all the 5 feasibility studies that we plan to add into our MTP. Any question on this? These feasibility studies, all of them are expected to yield projects. And so we are hoping that at least several of these feasibility studies are completed prior to the next MTP. And then the projects that come out of these will be considered as part of the ranked list in the next MTP.
I think we have a good list. I mean, that's a good list of locations.
Great. So the next slide. So these are all the public meetings. Several of you have come to the meetings that we had at MCC and in Belmead. Our next meeting is going to be in Hewitt, October 9th. These are 2-hour-long meetings, so you can come anytime between 5 and 7. You don't have to be. We don't have very set agenda that if you miss it at 5 o'clock that you can't join in. The way our setup is that we have several posters across the room. And then we have 4 discussion tables centered around 4 different major themes. And you can come, go anytime and have long conference, stay for the entire time, stay for 10 minutes, and whichever way it works, please do come. Last thing I wanted to mention, that one of the, it sounds like a very small item, but one of the changes that we carefully thought about was that in our bike ped work group meeting, there was a lot of discussion about, oh, we sit and talk about bike pedestrian stuff, but what happens to the projects? I mean, it's not like there is anybody following up and identifying what the projects, what the policies, what do they need to change. So one of the important things we are doing in this MTP is that taking the projects that are considered high importance by our bike ped work group and integrating wherever they overlap with MTP projects, integrating them into the scope of the project. So that one of the wonderful things that happened recently was the TxDOT changes manual in which design manual whereby each of the TxDOT roadway project now actively consider bike and pedestrian facilities. And so what that means is we're going to have them anywhere. So you might as well consider them as part of the integrated network. And so that's it sounds like a small project, but we're actually expecting that this will have major impact 15, 20 years down the road. And so here are some pictures of the, this is what we had at the MCC. We had a pretty great turnout at the MCC. We started out slow because we started at 11 o'clock, but by 12 o'clock, we actually had a lot of students show up for this meeting. So this was wonderful. And then we had this at the meet, which did not have as many people as we were expecting because previously we have had significant presence at the meeting, but this one was slightly sparsely attended. We are hoping that the humid meeting will compensate for that. And Amy, thank you for coming and manning some of the tables. Brian from McGregor has also been helping, and from Brenton was at the meet talking to a lot of people as well. And we also have had support from private firms like HDR and STV. Suzette worked the tables quite a bit at the MCC, and I think she's planning on coming to at least a few more. And so thank you. That's all I have.
Okay. We'll move on to item number 4, discussion and updates from TxDOT regarding significant highway construction within the Waco metropolitan area. Clayton, Sarah?
So starting with Mall to Mall, I know last month we talked about looking at some before and after photos on this project. As was mentioned, this project is essentially wrapped up minus some cleanup and getting some of our ITS infrastructure wrapped up with the DMS board there at Bagby. So if we want to go to the first slide here. So here's the Bagby turnarounds before construction. So again, just remember that was north-south movement, no U-turns. Post-construction, we've got the U-turns added to both sides. Kind of redone some of the lane configuration there, but that intersection's wrapped up. Moving toward Beverly, again, here's prior to construction. You can see the short exit ramp there on either side of the railroad tracks, no continuous frontage roads. Move to the after photos. Again, now you've got continuous frontage roads and lengthened out those exit ramps. Industrial Imperial. So here's your before photo. After, again, the big thing there is that the frontage roads have been widened to add some auxiliary and weave lanes to allow some of that exiting traffic to enter and exit and then get to the U-turns. And then some of our restriping there at Industrial Imperial. Oxygen depot bridges, so similar to Beverly, no continuous frontage roads. At the bottom of the page, you can see where oxygen was continuous across the railroad tracks. Going to the after photo, and now you've got continuous frontage roads. That oxygen connection has been cut off with a cul-de-sac installed as a result. And again, lengthened some of the entrance and exit ramps and added auxiliary lanes. And then this is the big change. I think everybody remembers that exit ramp there at Whataburger and the backup you would see out on the main lanes prior to construction. You go to the after photo, that exit is gone. You exit further back towards the Beverly intersection. Again, widen the main lanes here and widen out the frontage roads. That I'm actually going to turn it over to Mohab to talk about some of our other projects as well.
So FM 2113 from Sun Valley to Hillwood Drive, we are working on a permanent paving on the west half of the roadway between Hillwood Drive and the Old Temple. Next slide, please. This is the picture of it's a flex space. It's ready for the next layer and it's going to be ready for the final service for the whole road. FM 434, from business 77 to FM 3400. We are working on the other half of the bridge. It should be it's scheduled to for the bridge deck sometime this month, and we are working on the islands and signals on the Sal intersection. Also, we're gonna start putting the final pavement sometime next week. Next week, this is a picture of the other half of the bridge. We already set up the beams and we are working on the deck right now. And this is the islands at the Sal intersection. They already poured and remaining some work to have it finalized. So State Highway 31 and the FM 2311, the intersection, we are working on the westbound right now and some drainage work. This project approximately will take from 2.5 to 3 years. And the closing and shutdown of FM 2311 for replacing the bridges is going to be like around April of next year. So this is some picture of the westbound on Highway 31. Okay. It's hard for me to read from this list. State Highway 6, the main overlay from FM 1860. Okay, to Robeson County, the final service is almost done. Remaining some crossovers and turn lanes and striping. The loop, this project is very much done and final striping. We are working on the punch list right now. Business 77 bridge demo, the bridge is gone. So yeah.
Well, that one in final configuration actually next week, yeah, discussion. So that, any questions?
All right, thank you very much. We'll move on to item number 5, work group updates, which include the bike and pedestrian, the connected automated vehicles, the citizens participation, and the mobility land use.
So we still do not have the notice the grayed out citizen participation mobility land use group, but connected automated vehicle, the update we have is, so we have a white paper that we have completed that we have sent out. So instead of having a meeting, we're finalizing that white paper, and if that white paper is going to be included in the MTP, so that all the technology related projects that we have are well straightened out into that. Our next bike ped work group meeting will be November 20th. We have not decided on exact location yet. Depending on the weather, we typically like to organize a bike ride to wherever we are meeting, typically at the Cameron Park. And if we do that, then you will hear from us soon. And we had an update at the last staff meeting from Andrew for bike ped work group. And so obviously we don't have anything new. So if you have any question, we are happy to answer that, but we do not have any new update on that.
Okay. Does anybody have any further discussion items on that? Any of the work groups? Okay, then we'll move on to agenda item number 6, MPO monthly report.
So let's go to, this is an important one. So we just were notified yesterday that TechStop is organizing the virtual information webinars, and those are the locations and times. In fact, they're all being done online, and we had sent out, you should have received an email from us yesterday about when these are and how to sign up for these. This is really important because we have had great success so far into getting the TA funds in the area. And so we want to, every city to attend at least one of these 3 webinars. And October 14th, 17th, 23rd, and the agenda for the webinars are there. So it will probably be about a 90-minute, it will take full 90 minutes for this. So whoever you have in mind, who you would be assigning to write the grant proposal for the TA should definitely attend this webinar.
Okay, let's back up the agenda to item number 6, MPO monthly report, membership update and organizational update.
So that's all we had.
Okay, so that was under announcements, item number 7.
Yes.
Okay. Then continuing under item number 7, the next meeting will be Thursday, November the 7th. And if you have any agenda items you want to add, then send them to the MPO, to Daniela or Cash directly, or Arthur, any of the group,
You know, the stuff is.
any of the staff. And does anybody else have anything else they want to add to the discussion? All right, well, thank you all for being here. That will conclude this meeting. Yeah.
Usually I stay with staff. Yeah.
So I've noticed. Less year. Phase 2.
That like.
That was what I was thinking.
Like.